Every Saturday, I take my son to swimming lessons. Every week, it's a cluster getting there because this place is packed and chaotic. Every week, no matter how early I get there, finding parking is nearly impossible. Last Saturday, my parents offered to drop us off and pick us up since parking is so scarce, and they had a few errands to run in the area. I happily accepted their offer. They pulled us up right up to the entrance. I hopped out the back with my son's bag, went around to grab him from his car seat, and we were on our way. This Saturday, I was back on my own and happened to find a parking spot adjacent to the front entrance. I parked, grabbed my purse, and got out to get my son from the rear passenger side. On my way to the other side of the car, I saw my parents' car in the loading zone in front of the building. I was instantly confused, but before my mind could register anything further, the back door opens, and it's me. Except it's me last week. Same clothes and jacket I had on then. I got out with my son's bag and headed to the other side of the car. At that moment, a very large van drove by, and when it passed, my parents' car was totally gone, and so was I. This all unfolded in no more than 5 seconds. However, I was so flustered and upset that I got back in my car with my son and sat in the back seat with him for 20 minutes until I could compose myself. We missed swimming lessons and instead sat in the car and ate snacks and listened to music. I did not drink, do drugs, or take any medication. I wasn't overly tired or upset or distracted that morning. I know what I saw, and I'm freaked out. This wasn't a doppelganger. This was me last week. My husband has been treating me like I'm near a nervous breakdown since I've told him what happened and keeps asking me in different ways if I'm okay. I am totally fine. Update. Thank you all so much for the support, theories, and overall compassion. I came home today to my husband and family all waiting for me intervention style. I now understand why people keep these things to themselves. They all think I'm exhausted and need time to rest. I honestly don't know how to explain this, but I'd been home alone for around 4 or so hours when I heard my front door open and my mom call up to me to say hello, as she does when she comes home. I hear my dad do the same. I hear them talking downstairs and I think nothing of it, just continue doing what I'm doing. I go down to see them, to find I'm still alone. There's no car outside, the door is locked with no key on the stairs, and I'm weirded out. Around an hour later, they actually arrive home, and I don't mention it. I feel weirded out by the situation. Nothing like this has happened before, and nothing has happened since. This happened on Saturday, last week. Hello. I've never ever told this story to anyone, but I've kept it in my mind since happening in 1998. I just want to preface by saying I've never held a belief in ghosts, afterlife, or anything of the sort, either past or present. Even this event is not enough to make me believe ghosts are real. However, I do not have any material explanation for the event. It was mid-August 1998. I was 22 years old and working a summer job at a gas station before heading back to school. I had started college late as I fumbled about for a year or two after high school. Anyways, on a nice warm summer night, cars would come and go. As we had a full-service pump, I'd walk out of my little storefront for every car and pump their gas. The weather was perfect, not too hot, when normally it would be blisteringly hot at that time of year. Around the side of the building were the entrances to the bathrooms. I headed that way to use the restroom when I saw 2 hippie-looking teens with a dog, a boy and a girl. I grew up listening to bands like the Grateful Dead and Fish, and still do, and while I don't present as a hippie, I feel very comfortable in those circles. I could tell these kids had probably been hitchhiking. They didn't look destitute, but they were dirty and probably a bit hungry. Even though I was probably no more than 5 years older than them, I felt bad and wanted to help. I put a few bucks in the vending machine, bought them some snacks and drinks, and gave the dog a bowl of water. They were very thankful, and the doggo was very friendly. We chatted for a minute, then the boy said, "The dog is not ours. He was just hanging out here. He was friendly, so we just started playing with him and patting him." That was strange, of course, but not too crazy, right? Dogs get lost all the time. He was friendly and didn't look mistreated, so I just assumed he had gotten lost. Oh, and he had a collar and tag. Cool, I can find his owner, I thought. Oh, and his name was Sam. Important to note that he would respond to me calling his name Sam. A car pulled up to the full-service pump, so I ran out and did my thing. Last I looked, the hippies and Sam were still hanging out at this time, sorta off to the side of the store near where I first saw them. I finished up with the car and turned around to head back to the storefront. No hippies anywhere in sight. Nowhere. Just gone. Perhaps they hitched a ride while I was turned around, but it was only a minute. When I walked out to the street, I could see quite a ways in both directions. They were nowhere to be seen. This is the last I saw of the two hippie kids. I hope they're okay. Sam was still there, but it was getting late. I wanted to help. I decided to call the local police, who gave me the phone number of the animal shelter. I called over there, and the way that it was handled seemed very odd at the time and still does, but I wanted to help, so I went along with it. Sam was a good boy, after all. The person I spoke with at Animal Control looked up Sam's info based on the dog tag number. This person, instead of saying, "Hold on, we will send out an officer," or even just call the owner, instead they gave me Sam's owner's phone number and told me to call. I called the number, and an older man politely answered the phone. I explained I had Sam. I gave him water, and he's just hanging out with me here, but the gas station is closing soon, so it would be best for you to come pick up Sam. He seemed perplexed and asked me to describe Sam to him. I did. Sam looked like a mutt-lab mix, darkish brown coat, medium to large-sized dog, very friendly disposition, just a regular old good boy. What the man said next has been rattling around my brain for the last 24 years. The man said, "We had a dog named Sam, but he passed away a good 10 years ago." I was dumbfounded, and all I could do was describe Sam again, to which the man said, "Yeah, that sounds like Sam, but no way it could be. It just can't be." He was polite, and we talked back and forth for a bit more, but with no resolution, and we hung up. I was unsure about what to do next, but I quickly realized that there was nothing for me to do. Just like the hippie kids, Sam, too, was now nowhere to be seen. He just vanished. Thoughts. I would give anything to have this make sense, to be able to actually resolve this in a way that makes sense, and I've never been able to. I have lots and lots of thoughts and theories, but as the post is already very long, I'll end it here. But if anyone wants to ask questions in the comments, please do. Thank you for reading. My partner and I were in the kitchen eating our dinner this evening, and we got on to the topic of strange events that have happened in our lives. My partner mentioned having a dream 4 years ago where he saw a kitchen and child that he didn't recognize. At the time, he thought it was his niece, but had déjà vu tonight and realized it was our child and kitchen, and we were discussing how odd that was. I then said how I felt there is definitely unexplainable things out there, and mentioned odd occurrences in my job as a nurse with dying patients, and in my old job working in a medieval museum where me and other staff saw weird things in the corners of our eyes. It had even been visited by multiple mediums who all felt the museum was haunted. My partner then said he wondered if those occurrences happened to certain people and if some were more receptive than others. As he said this, a pound coin flew over him and landed on the floor between us. It stinks of mold and is a fairly recent coin. There was nowhere it could have fallen from, and neither of us had knocked anything that it could have come off. We also rarely have coins and pay for most things with a card, so it was just generally odd. There was no one else in the house, apart from the cat who was in the next room and doesn't tend to throw money at us. So yeah, that was a bit weird. One day when I was 16, in 1988, I got up for an early morning run. As I was tying my shoes, I heard a song playing on my boombox. Note, as a teen, if you've ever made mixtapes, you know very well what was on them. I started hearing this song and realized it wasn't on that tape. Intrigued, I pressed stop on my stereo cassette deck. I still heard it. I unplugged my stereo and everything else in the room. I still heard it. I turned off the light and walked around the house to see if I could hear music from any other room. Nothing. I went back, and from beneath my bed I heard the chorus of Loverboy's "This Could Be the Night," an 80s big hair rock band, over and over beneath my bed. There was nothing beneath my bed. I remember being so startled that I went into my parents' room, sat on their floor, and watched TV until daybreak. A lot of unworldly things have happened in my life since then. I'm working on figuring it all out. That's just one of the insane things that has happened to me. I'm actually combining a memoir with a science fiction book. That's how crazy my life has been. Am I immortal or entering alternate realities? I have been in 2 high-speed car wrecks, both without a seatbelt, and walked away without a bump. The first one, I was a passenger in my friend's 6 Series BMW, and we were seeing how fast it could go. It was raining lightly at night, and he lost control, and we busted through a guardrail, rolled 150 feet, and landed in the woods, stopped by a tree. I walked away without any injury, and he only busted his head open and had some bruises, but he had a seatbelt on, and I did not. Second, I was driving cross-country in an FJ Cruiser, no seatbelt on, doing about 110, and I dozed off and smashed into a brick wall and rolled probably 5 times. I literally felt myself bouncing off the inside surfaces of the car as it rolled, and when it stopped, I was squatting down, and a cop somehow was already there and helped open the door for me to climb out. I sustained no injuries, but the weird part was as they were questioning me, it felt like slow-motion déjà vu. I literally knew everything they were about to ask me and what they were thinking, and then they would say it out loud. Most surreal moment of my life, and it convinced me this is really the Matrix, and we are all connected through the same interface. In December 2012, the Mayan apocalypse, I had another bad accident at my house, which resulted in 2 days of brain scans and tests and being monitored by the hospital, but ultimately I left totally healthy and not damaged or injured in any way. I feel like I'm in that show, The OA, and maybe I'm dying in one reality and then just popping into another one 'cause it's not my time yet. I'm not religious, but there is a Bible verse that says something like, "Don't be anxious about anything because you can't add a single moment to your life." What if we have a predetermined expiration date, and if something fatal happens before it, you just go into an alternate reality? There have been several stories my mom has told me at gatherings and dinners, etc., which I did not recall at all, too. Perhaps they only happened in the reality I entered after a near-death experience. Anyways, what are your thoughts, and does anyone have a comparable story? I've had some weird shit happen to me today. Firstly, when I was leaving for school, I was looking for the keys. I usually leave them on this counter thing near our garage. I checked, and it wasn't there, so I was going to ask my dad, but first I checked my bag, which was right in front of the counter. They weren't there, and I turned around, and all of a sudden the keys were there, right in the middle of the counter. Next, I was messaging a friend and responded to multiple of their older messages. I felt like I sent maybe 4 or so, but when I scrolled down, nothing had sent. I remembered typing them out and sending them all, but I couldn't remember the contents. Then, while driving home, I witnessed a crash right beside me, and like 20 seconds before, I was thinking, I haven't really seen anyone crash yet, 'cause I'm a fairly new driver. Legit, maybe 10 to 20 seconds before I was thinking that, and then all of a sudden, this guy hits the dude next to me turning right. Not a bad crash at all, just weird. Lastly, just like 20 minutes ago, I went to my bed and there's a bear stuffed animal that I've literally never seen before here. The label says 2007, and I asked my sister and my dad, the only people in my house, if they put it here, and they both said no. I don't know if I'm just tripping a bit or if I'm remembering shit wrong, but it's weird. Maybe just a lot of weird coincidences. My girlfriend and I were leaving someone's apartment, and as we were coming around the corner, I saw someone step into the elevator, and then the doors closed. We were too far to catch it, but we reached the button to ask for a down elevator about 2 seconds after the doors closed. The doors to the elevator that just closed opened immediately, and nobody was inside. There wouldn't have been enough time for the elevator to go up or down, for them to get off, and then the elevator returned to our floor empty. So where did they go? It didn't click for a second, so I didn't actually ask my girlfriend if she saw the person too, until we got off the elevator on the bottom floor. She went, "What the fuck?" I did, actually. There weren't any spooky vibes or anything, but trying to remember details about the person is impossible. I couldn't give you a description of the appearance, but I do distinctly recall watching someone walk onto the elevator. My girlfriend can't recall anything about the appearance of the person either. Yesterday, I was at a museum where there were lots of Egyptian artifacts, including a real mummified corpse. It was fascinating, but also disgusting, in my opinion, and I couldn't stop looking at it. I think I even said out loud how disgusting it was to see that so close up. Anyway, fast forward to this morning, and I'm sat in my living room with my 2 cats. My kitchen is joined to this room, but the kitchen door is locked shut. There are no windows open or appliances on, and we are all really chilling. I even send a video of my 2 cats cuddling each other to my partner to show him how chilled they are. Suddenly, there's an almighty bang in the kitchen on the kitchen door from the inside, which is locked. We all freak out. It scares my cats so much that they sprint away down the hallway and skid on the floor. They obviously think there's someone in there. I live on the 2nd floor of an apartment block, so there's no way anyone could be there. I was also in the kitchen myself a few minutes beforehand making coffee. As soon as I open the door, I see the mini Bluetooth speaker along with its charger wire on the floor by the door, so I figured this is what made the noise. Still, though, how does an inanimate object just go flying on its own in a locked room from a stable position? It has a flat bottom, so it didn't roll anywhere. It was so loud as well, as if it had been thrown. This then reminded me last night when I was about to fall asleep, but definitely still awake. I suddenly had a creepy random vision of the mummy. I had forgotten about seeing it until that happened, and it gave me a shock and spooked me. What's weird is that when I text my partner about this today, he said he had the exact same experience of seeing the mummy before he fell asleep, and it spooked him too. He described it exactly the same. He said it wasn't a dream, but more of an image flash into his mind. About 20 minutes later now, I'm sat in the same spot, but the kitchen door is now unlocked and open. I heard a very high-pitched but quiet and drawn-out screech or scream. It sounded like a child, but just seemed to come out of the kitchen. My cat, who was next to me, again heard it too, and looked confused. I've had many unexplainable occurrences throughout my life, but a couple weeks ago I had my very first glitch in the Matrix type event. What makes this one so amazing is that my husband was there for the whole thing. Otherwise, I might have written it off as my lizard brain deceiving me once again. My husband is a car guy, and he is very anal about how he operates his cars. He has all these little gadgets and doodads, rotary dirters and what have you. So when he starts his car, he turns the key forward and lets all the electrical stuff start up before fully turning the key to start the engine. It probably only takes 4 seconds total, and yes, this is important. So we hop in the car one warm Saturday morning to go get all the goods for a giant breakfast feast. And he's turning the key over in his slow, weird way, and he says out loud, "Did I bring my sunglasses?" And without skipping a beat, his car, in her car voice, says, "You did," just like she was answering his question. We both just looked at each other in shock for a second before confirming that we each heard the same thing. He looked down and saw his sunglasses sitting in the cup holder, so she was right, too. By then, he had fully started the engine, but his phone had no time to connect, and why would it answer his question anyways? His car has buttons on the steering wheel that make it speak, so he pressed the button, and sure enough, that's his car's voice. My husband is a no-nonsense military man who doesn't like to think or talk about these types of things. We've had paranormal experiences that forced him to acknowledge that this stuff happens, but he would rather pretend it doesn't exist. I'm sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum, and I was super excited about the whole thing. Like, if one of you has a plausible explanation, I'm going to be disappointed as hell because I love this stuff, but anywho, that's my story. Thanks for reading. Hello, little Vickies. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and you haven't subscribed already, please do, and hit the like button, as they're both very helpful to my growth here on YouTube. If you have a suggestion or simply want to say hello, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you have a story of your own you'd like to share and possibly have read on the channel, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description, as are other ways to support the channel if you feel so inclined. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday by 5 p.m. Pacific. I appreciate you being here more than I could ever say. Thank you so much. And until next time, be good.